You've worked hard your entire life, saved diligently, and finally reached retirement with what seemed like a comfortable nest egg. Fast forward 10 years, and you're lying awake at night, anxiously checking your bank balance, wondering how the money disappeared so quickly. You're not alone. Across America, millions of seniors are facing a terrifying reality. They never anticipated running out of money while they still have decades of life ahead. The golden years that were supposed to be filled with leisure and peace of mind have become a daily struggle of cutting corners, skipping medications, and wondering if there will be enough left for next month's bills. What went wrong? Why do so many people who thought they had planned carefully find themselves in financial crisis during what should be the most relaxed chapter of their lives? Before we dive into the specific reasons, let's acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. The retirement system we've been told to rely on is fundamentally broken for most Americans. The traditional three-legged stool of retirement Social Security, pensions, and personal savings has become wobbly at best. Pensions have largely disappeared from the private sector. Social Security replaces only about 40% of pre-retirement income for average earners, and most Americans haven't saved nearly enough in their personal accounts. According to recent studies, nearly half of all retirees run out of money within the first 12 years of retirement, and that number is climbing. We're facing a silent crisis where more and more seniors are finding themselves financially vulnerable at precisely the moment when they're most dependent on their savings. Reason number 1. Inflation, the invisible thief that never stops. When you're planning for retirement, you might calculate that you need a certain amount per month to cover your expenses. You look at your current bills, add a little cushion, and feel confident you've got it covered. But there's a thief that works silently, day after day, year after year, stealing your purchasing power without you even noticing until it's too late. That thief is inflation. Most people dramatically underestimate the impact of inflation over a 20 or 30-year retirement. Even at a modest 3% annual inflation rate, which is actually below what we've experienced. In recent years, the cost of living doubles roughly every 24 years. This means that if you retire at 65 and live to 89, the groceries that cost you $100 in your first year of retirement will cost you $200 in your final years. Your fixed income, however, stays relatively the same or grows much more slowly. Social Security does include cost of living adjustments, but these adjustments often don't keep pace with the real inflation that seniors experience. Why? Because the Consumer Price Index used to calculate these adjustments doesn't accurately reflect senior spending patterns. Seniors spend disproportionately more on healthcare and housing, two categories that have inflated much faster than general consumer goods. While the price of televisions and smartphones might drop, the cost of prescription medications, medical procedures, home health aids, and property taxes skyrocket. Consider healthcare specifically. Medical inflation consistently runs higher than general inflation, often 2 to 3 times higher. If you're 65 when you retire, you might be relatively healthy with modest medical expenses, but by regular specialist visits and possibly medical equipment or home modifications, by 85 you might need part-time care assistance that costs thousands per month, expenses that didn't exist or were minimal in your early retirement years. The psychological impact of inflation is particularly cruel. Seniors often feel like they're being irresponsible or extravagant when their spending increases, not realizing that they're buying essentially the same things at higher prices. They cut back on essentials, skip meals, avoid social activities, or delay necessary medical care because they feel guilty about spending more money, when in reality, inflation is the culprit, not their spending habits. Reason number 2. Surprise expenses when life doesn't follow the plan. No matter how carefully you plan your retirement budget, life has a way of throwing curveballs that can devastate even the most carefully constructed financial plans. These aren't small inconveniences. They're massive, unexpected expenses that can drain tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars from retirement savings in a matter of months. The most common surprise expense is healthcare related, but it goes far beyond just doctor visits and prescriptions. A sudden serious illness can require treatments not fully covered by Medicare. Cancer treatment, for instance, even with insurance, can result in out-of-pocket costs of $50,000 or more when you factor in copays, deductibles, experimental treatments not covered by insurance. Travel to specialized medical centers, and the cost of having a family member take time off work to provide care. Then there's long-term care, perhaps the single biggest financial threat to retirement security. Most people will need some form of long-term care during their lifetimes, whether it's in-home assistance, assisted living, or nursing home care. The costs are staggering. The median cost for a private room in a nursing home now exceeds $100,000 per year in many states, and in high-cost areas, it can exceed $150,000 annually. Even in-home care, with an aide for just a few hours a day, can cost $3,000 to $4,000 per month. Medicare doesn't cover long-term custodial care, and Medicaid only kicks in after you've spent down nearly all your assets. Housing expenses present another category of surprise costs. Your home might be paid off, but that doesn't mean housing is free. Roofs need replacement every 20 to 30 years at costs of $10,000 to $30,000. HVAC systems fail. Water heaters burst. Foundation issues emerge. Property taxes rise relentlessly, and in some areas, they double or triple over a 20-year retirement. For seniors who can no longer maintain their homes physically, they face the choice of paying for yard maintenance, snow removal, cleaning services, and home repairs, or selling and moving, which comes with its own substantial costs. Family emergencies create another source of unexpected expenses. Adult children lose jobs and need temporary financial help. Grandchildren need support for college. A family member faces a medical crisis and needs assistance. These aren't selfish requests. They're family members in genuine crisis, and most seniors feel morally obligated to help, despite the cost to their own financial security. Reason number 3. Longevity. Living too long shouldn't be a financial curse. It sounds absurd to say that living a long life is a financial problem, but that's exactly the situation many seniors face. We're living longer than ever before, which is wonderful from a human perspective, but challenging from a financial one. Someone retiring at 65 today has a significant chance of living into their 90s, meaning their retirement savings need to last 30 years or more. Very few people save enough to fund 3 decades of living expenses, especially when those expenses are growing due to inflation and increasing healthcare needs. The longevity risk is particularly acute because it's unpredictable. You might plan your spending based on living to 85, only to find yourself at 86 with years ahead, but savings nearly gone. Many retirees try to make their money last by being extremely frugal, but this creates its own problems. Living an overly restricted life, never eating out, avoiding travel, cutting off relationships because of the cost of staying connected leads to isolation, depression, and ironically, sometimes worse health outcomes that increase medical costs. Margaret worked as a school teacher for 35 years, living modestly and saving diligently. She retired at 64 with what seemed like a solid plan: a pension of $2,000 per month, Social Security of $1,500, and savings of $300,000 in her 401k. She owned her home outright, had no debt, and calculated that she could live comfortably on about $4,000 per month. For the first 5 years, everything went according to plan. Then at 69, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. The treatment was successful, but even with Medicare and supplemental insurance, her out-of-pocket costs totaled $47,000. Her 401k balance dropped to $230,000. At 71, her daughter went through a difficult divorce and needed help. Margaret helped with legal costs and temporary housing, another $30,000 from savings. At 74, her home's roof and HVAC system needed replacement, costing $22,000. She also needed a newer car, another $15,000. By 77, Margaret needed home modifications for mobility issues and part-time home health assistance at $800 per month. Now, at 82, Margaret has only $57,000 left in savings. Her expenses have increased with inflation. What cost $4,000 per month now costs nearly $6,000. She's terrified of what happens when the money runs out. Margaret did everything right. She saved, planned, and lived modestly. But inflation, surprise expenses, and longevity combined to put her in a precarious financial position anyway. The good news is that understanding these 3 primary risks allows you to plan more effectively and take action to protect yourself. Planning for inflation. Build inflation into your retirement projections. Realistically, assume expenses will increase at least 3 to 4% annually, with healthcare costs rising even faster. Consider delaying Social Security until 70 if possible, as this provides the highest monthly benefit and better inflation protection. Keep a portion of your retirement portfolio in growth investments even in retirement to help outpace inflation. Preparing for surprise expenses. Build a robust emergency fund, separate from your retirement account, ideally covering at least 12 months of expenses. Seriously consider long-term care insurance in your 50s or early 60s, when premiums are more affordable. Review your health insurance coverage carefully to minimize gaps. Maintain your home proactively to avoid emergency repairs. Consider downsizing to a smaller home or relocating to a lower cost of living area. Managing longevity risk. Plan for living to 95 or even 100, not 85. Consider guaranteed income sources like annuities that provide lifetime income regardless of how long you live. Work a few years longer if possible, as each additional work year adds to savings, reduces retirement years to fund, and increases Social Security benefits. Explore part-time work in early retirement to supplement income. If you're reading this and feeling anxious about your retirement prospects, take a deep breath. Awareness is power. By understanding these three critical risks, surprise expenses, and longevity, already ahead of most people. The fact that you're seeking information means you're taking your financial future seriously, and that mindset is the foundation of successful retirement planning. It's never too late to improve your situation. Whether you're still working and can adjust your savings strategy, newly retired and can modify your spending plans, or already facing financial challenges, there are always steps you can take. The path to financial security in retirement isn't about being wealthy. It's about being realistic, prepared, and flexible. Millions of seniors are living comfortable, financially secure retirements not because they're rich, but because they planned for these specific challenges. You can be one of them. Reach out to a qualified financial advisor. Talk honestly with your family about expectations and needs, and review your plans annually. Your retirement year should be a time of peace and fulfillment. With proper planning, you can avoid becoming another statistic in the silent retirement crisis. You've worked hard your entire life. You deserve a retirement where you can sleep soundly, knowing your financial foundation is solid.